We're going to give it just a couple more minutes here to see if anybody else wants to join us live. While we're waiting to see if anybody else joins, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Brandy, and I am the support team lead here at Details Flowers. Today's topic is going to be on templates, and we're going to go over a couple of different areas within Details that you can make templates. This is probably one of the most commonly asked questions, specifically where the worksheet is concerned about how do I duplicate an event? Can I just copy an event and make a couple minor changes? And so we're going to go through all of that today. During our webinar today, I do ask that if you have any questions, you can go ahead and put those in the chat. I do have Crystal here who is going to be monitoring that chat. So if you have any questions, you can add them there into the chat. And then, of course, at the very end, as always, we will open it up for any questions. And at that time, if you want to ask your questions over the mic, you can do that at that point as well. So just some options there. In addition, like we do every month, we also will send a follow-up email, and that email is going to contain a bunch of different links to our support center articles that go through the things that we're going to be talking about today. And there's also going to be a recap video, so if you want to rewatch this class, you can do that then as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started here. We're about 2 minutes past, and I'm going to share my screen. Okay, and let me just go ahead and get my chat and everything open here. All right, perfect. So the very first thing that we're going to look at today is going to be worksheet templates. So before we get started, what is a template? Basically, it's going to be an outline of either maybe it's a worksheet that you've created, or it could be a set of contract terms that you've created for maybe a specific venue or a specific type of event. Maybe it's even a template that you created there for your proposal. And basically, this is going to be a time-saving tool to allow you to basically recreate those same weddings that you're seeing over and over again. Maybe that's a similar style or theme that you're seeing, or maybe it's the color palette that's the same, or maybe it's the boho wedding with all of the dried florals and things that you're seeing over and over again. I think we're kind of getting away from that now, but all of those different trends and things that you keep seeing over and over again, you can create templates of those things. And then, when Susan comes in to ask for that same event that you did for Jessica last week, you can load that template in, and maybe you're just making some minor changes to the focal flowers. Maybe they have specific flowers they want to include. They really like Gerber daisies, whereas Jessica really likes dahlias. And so maybe we're just switching out a couple of different items. Maybe we're changing quantities, things like that. But ultimately, it's going to save you from having to reinvent the wheel on things that you're seeing consistently over and over again as trends that are happening in the industry. So to get started here on the worksheet, I've created a wildflower kind of spring wedding here, and I've created my color palette. I've got a couple of different recipes that I have within my worksheet here, including all of those quantities and things, a description, any changes that I might have made to costs on the items and things of that nature. In addition to that, when I'm making out my templates, I also might want to go down to the very bottom here of my worksheet and look at the services that I'm offering, or the fees, or my event staff. What did it take the last time that I made this event to create this particular event? I always like to suggest that if you're making a template of something that you've already done, to go back to that event that you've already done and look and say, okay, well, on this event, I had only allotted 6 hours for that supervisor to be working on this event. But in reality, it took them, 10 hours or 8 hours or, things like that. Or maybe we had 5 people on a setup crew, but it ended up being that we could have used another person, or maybe we could have had one less person, or, you know, whatever that happens to be. And that way you can come back in here and adjust those counts or adjust the hour count. And that way, when you save that template, the next time that you do this, you know that you're only going to need 4 people to do setup, or you know that you're going to need 7 people to do setup, etc. Same thing with labor fees or delivery fees or anything like that. If you have like maybe a separate setup fee that you do, any of those fees that are going to be kind of blanket across the entire spectrum of your business, you can go ahead and add those onto the worksheet. And that way, when you save this as a template, it's going to save all of that information with it. So once you've created your worksheet here, you've got all of your recipes and your fees and things like that on here that you want to save in your template. At the bottom, you're going to click on that save button, which is something that you normally will be doing throughout the entirety of creating events and details. However, instead of saving it as a new version, you're going to click on that drop-down menu and save this as a new template. From there, you're going to be able to put in a name, descriptions, and tags. In this case, I'm going to name it Wildflower Spring Wedding. I can go ahead and put in a description here. So maybe I just put in wildflowers, or I can also do that same thing as a tag. So wildflowers or spring or wedding or things like that. So I can fill out all of that information here, and I'm going to go ahead and save it. So now that I've got that new template and everything, the question then comes to, how am I going to use that? Where do I go to load that template in once I've created it? So I've got a blank event here that I'm going to go ahead and just refresh the screen on. And basically the answer is that you're going to create a new event. And then when you get to this worksheet area, in the top right-hand corner, you're going to see an options button. We're having some very slow internet issues today. Okay, so on that panel, you'll also see an option here that says load template. And once you click on that load template option, this box is going to pop up and it's going to show you every template that you've ever created. Going all the way down to the bottom here, we do start you off with a couple of different templates. These ones are more so just like the bones, if you will. So it's got sections and line items that pertain to like funerals or corporate events or weddings, etc. But as we just saw, we can also do ones that include all of your recipes and fees and services and all of that that you offered on this event the last time that you did it. So I'm going to go ahead and select that Wildflower Spring. It's going to let me know that any unsaved changes that I have are going to be lost, which is fine because I don't have any on this one, but just so you're aware for future if you're doing this on your own. And I'm going to go ahead and click that yes button. And what that does is it's going to populate that worksheet here on the right-hand side. So it pulled in all of my items, all the quantities, any description I had in there, as well as if I go down to the bottom here, things like those services, the event staff area, any fees and things that I might have added. And so all of that is just automatically going to populate here into the worksheet. From there, if you need to make any changes to maybe it's the same style wedding, but it's smaller. So maybe you're going to make adjustments to quantities. There's 4 bridesmaids instead of 6. Maybe there's, less of the groomsmen, so you have less boutonnieres. Maybe they have a smaller aisle, so they're going to have less of the aisle decor. Whatever that happens to be, you can go in there and add in all of those quantities and things. Taylor Shaw says, if you can go back and do it one more time, I got a bit lost. So from the beginning, Taylor, or was there a specific spot?
So I'm just sorry. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I'm just doing it on my end as well. I created like the new event, and then I'm just trying to load the template in.
Yeah, so in that process, you're going to go to options, load template. And then once that box pops up, you'll click on the template that you had just saved. And then click select template. And that will load that template into your worksheet here on the right-hand side.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. And in addition to that, of course, it's also going to pull in things like your color palette, your tax rate. So specifically, as it pertains to if you're doing different templates for like different locations. I know that we have some customers that their states, like the taxes are different in each county that they work in, and maybe they work in like 3 or 4 different counties. So maybe it's not going to be a template that you're making for a specific style or type of wedding. Maybe it's just going to be a simple template that's going to be based on your location. So maybe the only difference in those template is the tax rate, or you know, if you've got specific locations like the venue, and those venues have specific rooms, and so each one of your sections, it's named after a room, the grand ballroom, you know, things like that. So I want you to always think about this, and the fact that your template can be something that is a fully made out event, but it can also be just like bones based on location, or, you know, if you're doing like different venues or counties, or, you know, tax rate, things like that. So just to kind of keep that in mind. The next question that normally comes up when we load in a template here on the worksheet is, but how do I get those items and recipes and things back over onto my design board then? So that way I can make changes and drag and drop and do all those things that I, you know, would normally do here on the worksheet. So the answer is, first and foremost, if you want to move your items over, you're going to go to the options menu in the upper right-hand corner and click favorite all items. What that does is it looks through all of the recipes that you have on your worksheet, and it pulls all of the items that you're currently using and adds them over onto your design board. This is great, not only in the sense of templates and we're loading in things that are already filled out, but also in the sense of if you're using one of those pre-made recipes and you've dragged it over to your design board and, excuse me, to your worksheet, but now you're building out the bridesmaids bouquet or the maid of honors bouquet, and you want to kind of use some of those same items and things in those recipes that you're building from scratch. Again, you can click on that options menu in the top right-hand corner, favorite all items, and that's going to move everything over onto your design board on the left-hand side. As far as recipes go, though, I'm going to open up the recipe that I want to add over onto my design board. I'm going to click on the 2 opposite facing arrows in the upper right-hand corner. And again, I can click favorite recipe. The recipes are a little bit different. You're going to have to do those individually. So just to keep that in mind. But it's just as simple as going here, favorite recipe, it adds it to your design board. So you'll just do those for all of the different items that you want to add over onto your design board as well. And from there, of course, you can just go ahead and click that save button. You save it as a new version, and I'm going to say loaded wildflower template in. Okay, so that's worksheet templates. Next, going back to my other event here, we're going to actually go over into the financials drop down here, and we're going to go to event terms. So with each one of your events in details, it's going to automatically populate whatever you have set as your default contract terms. And what do I mean by the default contract terms? I mean, when you initially created your account in details, from the main menu, you're going to have an option that says company and then contract terms. So as soon as this loads here, so you'll have that main menu, company, contract terms. Whatever you have listed out here in this section, right here in the contract terms area, that's your default, and that's what's going to populate each and every time you start a new event. However, we do know that just like on the worksheet, you may be working in different locations. You may be working at different venues. You may have different types of events. So maybe you have a varying contract based on the venue, or maybe you have varying terms based on seasonality. So maybe it's something to the effect of like, these flowers, while they're great and I can get them at this time, in the heat, they're not going to last very long without a water source. And so there are certain things that, you know, if I create that specific arrangement, I have to have something in there that says that I can't have a water source at this venue. And so those flowers are going to be, you know, they're not going to last very long. But maybe it's also something like I have a specific set of contracts for weddings that work one way versus if I'm doing a funeral, or if I'm doing a birthday party or an anniversary or a corporate event. Maybe all of those different types of events have different sets of contract terms. So for my wedding, it's great that I have a clause in here about the wedding date. It's great that I have something in here about, design changes and things, or, maybe my health and safety is different, things like that. But maybe if I'm doing something like a venue specific contract, that venue requires me to have a specific clause in my contract terms that explains that the venue is not liable for any, damages to, I don't know, the dance floor or anything like that, that could be caused by the florals or the water source that I'm using. So in that case, I would go ahead and click the add term at the bottom. I can name that, and maybe the term is named after the venue, but I'm just going to go ahead and name it venue specific clause. And then in there, you would go ahead and just put in any information about the clause, it pertaining to that specific thing that needs to be in there. And then I can go ahead and save that. But then at the very top, in order to save this as a template, so the next time I have an event at that venue, I can go into my menu option in the top right-hand corner, and I can save as template. From there, I'm just going to go ahead and put in the name of my template. So maybe this is venue specific template, and I can create that template. Just like on the worksheet where I was going in to utilize that at a later date on a new event, I'm going to go into the financials of that new event under event terms. And to load in that template, I'm going to go to menu at the top right-hand corner, and I have the load template option. From there, just like on the worksheet, you're going to see all of the different templates that you've ever saved, and not only all the ones that you've saved, but I do also want to mention that this is going to be for anybody who saved a template across your entire company. So if you've saved a template and Susie saved a template, you and Susie's templates will both live in here. So if you're the owner of a company and you want to go ahead and say, okay, well, every time that we do this venue, this is the template that we need to use, and you specifically have made that set of contract terms, and now your employee just needs to go in there and load that template in each time that they have this type of event or this an event at this venue. So again, you'll just click on the template you want to load and click load template. You can also on this page drag to reorder or delete any of the terms that are on this page if they don't pertain to the new template that you're creating or the event that you're creating at this time as well. So that is our contract templates. The next set of template is actually going to be on the proposal. So I also want to kind of keep this in mind that in thinking about templates, I personally recommend that you think of them in sets. So if I have a worksheet template, then I'm also going to have a corresponding proposal template that goes with it. And that way, every time I load in the worksheet template, I'm also going to load in this proposal template. And this also ties into collections. So if I have a template of that worksheet and a template of the proposal for this wildflowers event, maybe I also have a wildflowers collection of items, or a wildflowers collection of recipes, or a wildflowers collection of inspiration images. And that way I know every time that I use this template, I'm also going to go to the item gallery and grab all the items out of that collection, the recipe gallery and grab all those recipes, inspiration gallery and grab all those inspiration images. And that way I have all of those things already sectioned out and I can use them with each other. So here on my proposal, for proposal templates, I want you to think about it as if I can change it on the proposal, it's going to be saved in the template. So that would be things like the photos that you can change on here, the names. So if I'm changing the names of like my bride and groom, or my featured title, or anything that's down here, anything that you can change on the proposal is going to be saved in your template. So just to keep that in mind. If I'm making a template, I'm probably not going to save the names of my bride or the names of my groom. I'm probably not going to save this down here, this client name. Probably going to remove that. And that way, when I save it, it's going to save all of my images and things like that. But it's not going to save any of that like specific information that's for this bride and groom, because it's not always going to be Susan and John. Same thing on our concept page. Any of these, the floral inspiration, the event inspiration that I have down here, also my overall feeling and the conceptual description, that's all going to be something that's going to be saved in the proposal. So I just want you to keep that in mind. Other things that you can change. So conceptual design, maybe when I'm doing a corporate event, conceptual design, it doesn't need to be there. It could just be design. Or maybe if I'm doing something like a funeral, it's going to be named something totally different. So again, I can change out the titles there. Other things on these pages, this information that I can't physically change here on this proposal, that's all stuff that's not going to be saved in my template. It's going to be event specific. And so when I load in this proposal template for that new event, it's going to have that new event's information in here. So like your client info, important times, locations, and things like that, that's all going to be specific to your event and will not be saved in your template. However, this is a great time to determine what things you like versus don't like to show on the proposal. If you don't use this items page, you always hide it. Now it's a great time to go ahead and hide it before you save your template. That way, when you load in this template again, that page is automatically going to be hidden. And that's going to go for any of the pages within your event. So I know probably like the breakdown page is going to be one of the things that a lot of people like to hide. And guess what? You can do that and you can set it up so where it always hides that page. Same thing if we're talking about on the line items page. So, you know, this really shows all of the information here for your event. And I know that in not all cases is it best to show individual line item prices. Maybe they don't need to know that each individual recipe costs this much. Maybe all they need is this is the total for all of the bouquets for your event. And in that case, maybe I go over here and I hide those line item prices. Maybe when I'm making recipes, I don't really name my recipes. You should, but just if you don't, and it always says unnamed recipe, then you can go ahead and hide that on the left-hand side. And that way, the next time that you load this template in, it's going to automatically hide that section. All right, so just kind of keeping all of those things in mind. Once you have completely finished your proposal exactly as you want it, and everything's completely finished, you're going to go up to the top under menu and click Save As. From there, you can save this as either a template or as your defaults. In this case, it's got like a specific theme of the wildflowers, and so I'm going to save it as a template here. And I'll save that. However, if we're talking about things like what I was just saying, like we always hide the breakdown page, we always hide our individual line item prices, we always change the title of conceptual design because we don't like that specific section heading. If there are things that you are every time you go to the proposal changing or hiding or adjusting, now's the time to make some defaults. This is the same process. You're going to go into an event. If you're doing it for your defaults, I would recommend that you just go in and make like a dummy event so that you can go in and kind of just leave it very bare, but just putting in anything that you want as your defaults. Then in that case, you're going to save as, and you can save it as your defaults. You can also give your defaults a name and go ahead and save that. When you do that, what that means is that that default is going to load into your proposal area every time you start an event. So if you have placeholder images that you like to use in a opposition to the ones that we provide, guess what? You can put your own in there. And that way, every time that you start a new proposal or a new event, that's what's going to load in there. And that's going to be your default forever and always. And so just kind of keeping this in the frame of time-saving features, If there's things on this area that you're constantly changing or constantly adjusting or constantly hiding, I recommend that you do defaults. Of course, with all of these templates, just to keep in mind that these are templates, and every time that you load them in, you don't have to use them exactly as they were at the time that you saved them. They can be customized on a per event basis. So kind of like what I was saying on the worksheet, if they didn't, one person really liked dahlias, but this person really likes Gerbera daisies, and so we're going to flip flop those items for this new bride. You can have all of those changes in there as well. This is more so just so you have a baseline and you're not reinventing the entire wheel. All right, so those are the three that are going to be within your event itself. The last page that we're going to go look at as far as templates is actually going to be your forms. If you're not using the forms, just to kind of give you a little background on what they are, the form builder allows you to create forms of all kinds. Most notably, the majority of our clients are using them for intake forms that you host on your website. And basically every time somebody fills out that form, it's going to automatically create an event for you and map some of the fields in as far as like the client information and the information that's on the details page. So times, locations, things like that. But you can also make other things. Maybe you want to make a survey, like a feedback survey, and send that out to your clients. If you want to have maybe just like a, I don't know, a questionnaire that people, hey, I want to know how you guys like to find all of the information out about our company. Do you like to hear about sales from social media, or does emails work better for you? Things like that. You can create pretty much any form that you can think of. You can make it here in details. So that being said, though, when you initially first start on the form area, you do get started with two templates. One is like a wedding intake form, and the other one is just like a general intake form that's not quite so event specific or event type specific, if you will. However, let me just go ahead and go into one of these events, or excuse me, these forms. If we're talking about forms in the sense of I'm making a quarterly survey, and that survey is kind of going to have the same premise, but maybe I'm adding or changing a couple of things each quarter. Maybe I have like a holidays one, and I like to learn more about what holidays my clients celebrate. Should I be doing more stuff on my retail side for Halloween or things like that? So if I'm doing something like that, then in that case, I may choose to go ahead and save not only as a version, but also as a template. Just like on all the other sections that we looked at, it's going to have all of the different questions and things that you have saved on that form at the time. And that way you can create a new template, give it a name, give it a description, and save it. And then, of course, just like on all of the other ones that we've seen, in the top right-hand corner, you're going to be able to load that template in at any time. This is also great if you are a company that has multiple companies or multiple branches working within one details account. I know that we do have a couple of customers who have different companies within their one company. And in that case, you can make intake forms for all of your different companies. And you can create a template here of your intake form, copy it, and then maybe I'm just changing out my company name or my company logo or anything like that. And you can just make those changes there as well. All right, so we've got about 15 minutes left, and I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. Does anybody have any questions on templates? Any templates that we talked about today at all? All right, Taylor.
Thank you. So my question is if we could, so I made like a mock worksheet, but I want to go back to the section where you can like save, I'm sorry, like where you could save prices, because I like in details, like our prices are different from what details provide. So I'd like to save like our own prices in there, so I don't have to keep going back and like redoing it every time.
So if we're talking about individual items,
yeah,
Yeah, so you can change that on a per event basis, but quite
Okay.
frankly, if your prices vary drastically from what we have in details based on like your local wholesaler,
Yeah.
actually recommend that you go into your item gallery, which is under resources, and update that information there. So let me just
The
go ahead
recipe gallery,
in their item gallery.
resources, item gallery.
Mhm. Yep, and then if you're updating like all of the items, I would probably recommend that you just go into the all items collection, and then on the table view, you'll be able to update all of your items. And just for everybody, going back to that previous conversation, this is where I would recommend that you make those collections to go along with your template. So maybe you have like a themed collection, and inside there I have all of my like boho items or my nautical themed items, and things like that.
Awesome. So the default ones, when we went through the default, that's just as a template. Like if you have like nautical theme, like $10,000 budget, you can make that as a template with the default items, but you can't do it for like overall.
I guess I'm not sure what you mean by overall.
Like I can't change like anytime I do a new proposal, like I have to manually put in our prices, right?
Oh, no. So if you update these items
Yeah.
and their prices, anytime you use that item, it's then going to have your updated pricing.
Okay, great. And then can we just go over the default one more time? Template?
Default proposal.
Default numbers. Weren't we doing something with default numbers?
I mean, on the worksheet, I mentioned that you could do things like adding in your like your fees.
Okay.
Like a default delivery fee, or maybe a setup fee or anything like that. So like in relation to fees or services or anything like that, then yes, you can absolutely add them onto your worksheet. So let me just go down here to those sections. So in the sense of a template, I would go ahead and you can put those things like boutonniere pinning, for example. And
Okay.
maybe this event had 6 boutonnieres and I charge them $35 a piece. I could go ahead and add that in there. And the next time that I load it, it's going to load that information in.
Beautiful. Okay. Perfect.
Of course, same thing with fees and everything. But Taylor, I would recommend that if there are things like fees, labor, delivery, anything like that, that you charge for every event, then I would probably recommend that you go ahead under main menu under company
Mhm.
and update your event defaults worksheet, which is the one
Okay.
that's every time you start an event.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right. Any other questions that we have from our audience today? I'm gonna go ahead and give that a couple of minutes there just to see if anybody has any questions. And you can also put it into the chat if you want. But while we wait, I will say that we are going to be putting all this information into an email, and we're going to have all of our support center articles that relate to this topic, as well as the recap video. So if you want to rewatch it, or if you want to also share this with any other members of your team or anything like that, you can always go in and rewatch this video as many times as you want. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and close it out then. We don't have any more questions, but I appreciate everybody for taking some time to join me today. And if you have any other questions about this or anything else regarding details, always feel free to reach back out and we'd be happy to assist you further. But I hope you all have a great rest of your week and happy Wednesday.